Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to GarbAugust's, the BookTube event your mother warned you about. This is perhaps the most deplorable BookTube event of them all. It was created by Ollie at Criminali, and it is a month-long celebration of trash. It's a month-long celebration of books you've got no excuse reading. And I have read a huge amount of trash in my life, so I have naturally wanted to jump in whole hog into a month-long event dedicated to trash. But I've also been devoting some meta thought to what trash is and what it isn't, how you distinguish it and how you don't. What are some of its universal characteristics? The GarbAugust's co-host and I have been working up some informal lists, for instance, of if you have these items in your book, these specific things, is that an indicator that your book is trash? I made a video the other day on slightly broader things than that. If the thing you're reading has certain characteristics, certain broad characteristics, maybe it's trash. I've received some emails since I made that video saying, well, if you encountered a book that had all of these qualities, why would you read it? If in that video I said I listed 4 qualities, and I said the more of those 4 qualities that a book has, probably the more likely it is that it's trash. And some people have emailed me and said, well, if it has even one of those qualities, why would you read it? And that gets at a deeper subject about reading garbage that I would like to get to, which is that it can be a lot of fun. That there's no wrong way to enjoy what you read, so that would be a reason to read trash. But in addition to those broader categorical things, what about specific things? Specific identifying items. We've come up with a long list of those. We can probably come up with a lot more. I mentioned the other day that shapeshifters is one such thing. If there's a shapeshifter that's prominent in your book, maybe that's a sign that it's trash. A giant ravenous animal, exclamation point in the title, cigarette ads stuck in the middle of the book as they used to be before they were regulated out of existence. And also, is the book part of an interminable series? A series that goes on for, let's say, more than 3 books. Maybe generously more than 5 books. If you're reading book number 17 in a series, is that in and of itself probably conclusive proof that the book is trash? Things like that have come up. They're on my mind now when I'm going through my trash books. And I went through my trash books last night because I wanted to pick a print mass market paperback. I read the last few trash books that I read were ebooks. Trash proliferates in the self-published ebook world. Proliferates. And I don't just mean the books that are trying to be good but failing disastrously. I mean the ones that are trying to be trash. But I went to my paperbacks instead, and I found a book that is number 16 in a series. And the series is Men's Adventure, with guns on the cover. All of those things are on our list of possible indicators of trash. It's this. I don't want to block the bean here. It's Sicilian Slaughter. Number 16 in Mack, Bolan, the Executioner novels. This one by Jim Peterson. This is the only Mack Bolan book that I have in a paperback form, and it's the only one that I've read in 20 or 30 years. It has a rather interesting cover. Most of them don't have this kind of individualized artwork. The sporty roadster and the men being slaughtered outside a Sicilian chateau. Most Mack Bolan books that I've seen have much more boring covers than this. That might have been why I grabbed this from the Brattle Bookshop. So this is a men's adventure story, which means the main character will have guns. He will have an endless supply of guns and ammunition, even if he's in the back of beyond, where he's going to need to buy ammunition, and everyone hates him. Everyone already knows who he is and wants him dead. He still manages to buy ammunition in those places. And it's number 16 in a series that is now up to something like 1,016, so it has a lot of categories against it in terms of, or in its favor, depending on how you look at it, of garbage. And I got this at the Brattle months ago and kind of thought down the line, this will do for a garbage trash read. Sometimes you want a garbage trash read. And I read it. And it brought back lots of memories of the other Mack Bolan books that I've read. I think I read the first 4 or 5 of these before I gave up on the series. But you're really not missing any key Rosetta Stone details if you jump in at number 16. The basic premise here is that Mack Bolan is on a one-man mission of vengeance against the mafia, against organized crime. He is tracking them down wherever they go, and since the author's conceit is that they are everywhere, then he gets to go everywhere. And this is the novel where he traces them back to their roots, where he goes to Sicily. which the cover describes as hot and arid. That is absolutely true for most of Sicily. Even some of the towns that are perched over the water somehow manage to be hot and arid. There is a beauty to be found in coastal Sicily, an amazing beauty in some places. But the interior, it's an acquired taste. And it is, of course, the famous birthplace of the mafia. If you watch The Godfather Part 2, for instance, you will see that clear as day. And so it's kind of surprising to me that it took Mack Bolan 16 books to get around to going to Sicily, but he does. Because he's heard a rumor that one particular Sicilian crime family is building a massive army, and he needs to nip this thing in the bud. And so he does. He goes to Sicily, and he does all of the Mack Bolan things. He views most people as weak-kneed sheep. He views most women, of course, as little more than talking handy wipes. They are there solely for the convenience of the men. And the momentary distraction of the men, and also the ones that have even 2 brain cells, only use those brain cells to betray men or to be virtuous towards men so that they can be slaughtered mid-act as an extra oomph for motivation. It's not exactly, a men's adventure book is not exactly where you go for well-written female characters, and there are none in this book. And Mack Bolan himself is not well done. He's not well-written in any of the Mack Bolan books that I've ever read. He's not a real person. He's sort of a Hollywood gimmick semi-brought to life. And we get that towards the end here when he has decided, after a lot of faffing around, he's decided to bring the war right to the doorstep of this organized crime family, the Cafu family. And we get a little bit of a broader view of what his worldview is like. Mack Bolan, the executioner, the book is constantly telling us that that's who he is. Constantly, as if it wasn't on the cover. Mack Bolan, the executioner, was not only a highly efficient practitioner, but also a student of military tactics and strategy. The oldest rule in the book had never changed. You must take the high ground, or you will die in the valleys. And wars had been lost because of laziness. Occupying the high ground took men of stamina, willpower, and commitment. Bolan had discovered in his first day's recon that Cafu's trainees had little else on their minds but $1,000 a day and easy living stateside. They did not like to climb mountains, so they faked it. They did not like roughing it, so they lugged along 10 pounds of crap in their rucksacks. Liquor, canned foods, reading material. It's called crap. And a few even managed to inveigle some of the local girls to come along and spend the watch with them. In that first day, Bolan could have killed 19 of Cafu's soldier trainees. But that would have set the dogs on him when the relief men came up to take their positions on the outer rim of the defense perimeter and found deads. The plural is deads. I guess dead people is meant there. Cafu would have been alerted and doubly defensive. Bolan kept scouting, and just before noon, he locked on at last what he had sought: a soldier trainee who looked enough like Mack Bolan. Not really, but perhaps. Enough so that Matt could take the guy down, replace him, hopefully pass himself off as a soldier long enough to get inside. And if his estimate of the relief was correct, he would arrive at the base camp near dusk and in the gloom possibly pass himself off as the trainee. So that's his plan. We're on page 140 of a 180-page book. And he's finally decided to take the war to the enemy. I have to say, and I don't remember this being true for a lot of other Mack Bolan books I've read, not a lot that happens in the 120 pages before that excerpt is all that interesting. It just sort of wanders around. I mean, if you go into an executioner book at number 16 in the series needing to be convinced that Mack Bolan is super tough, well, okay, then you've got a reason to stick around for those 120 pages, because that's all they try to do, is convince you of how tough he is. If you know that already about him, you're just going to be waiting for him to do more than he does. So this was not an example, I think, of successful trash. Because if it were successful trash, even once I, agreed to its terms, so to speak, I'd be enjoying it. And I wasn't until around the section that I decided to read to you. It's around that section that real gasoline is pumped into the plot. Before that, not so much. Before that, it's mainly just sort of one thing after another. And I guess a generous reading would be that a lot of that stuff is meant to give you an insight into Mack Bolan's personality, but that personality has to be there first, right? The personality has to exist first before you can be given insight into it. And the author, Jim Peterson here, no idea if that's a pen name, but he doesn't seem interested in giving anybody in this book a personality. The closest thing that anyone gets to one is often the case in men's adventure stories, and that is the villain. But Mack Bolan himself, no. By page 100, if not long before then, all I wanted was to read a novel about the villain, and not about Mack Bolan at all. So today's trash pile for GarbAugust was not a success, and that's a few non-successes in a row. So what am I going to do about that? Maybe I need to turn to trash that I know I love, trash that I believe is successful trash for me. Maybe I need to do that. For tomorrow. I'll give it some thought and we'll find out. But anyway, that's your report for GarbAugust 2022. I'll wrap this up for now and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.